Rain braided itself into ropes over a clearing where breath had become a currency too rare to spend. The mother gorilla hovered above a tiny chest, her hands moving with a strange, borrowed wisdom, pressing, lifting, sealing the mouth from the flood of sky. Leaves clattered like teeth in the canopy. Far off, thunder folded the jungle into a single shudder. She counted an animal instinct and human rhythm, a cadence learned without language. The infant's ribs were thimbles under wet fur, a metronome that refused the stick. Lightning pinned their shadows to the mud like insects on glass. The silverback paced an arc around them, a broken moon in orbit. Somewhere, water found its level. Somewhere, a predator swallowed a whine. The mother pressed again and again, not asking, not praying. A shallow swell moved the tiny abdomen once, like wind lifting ash, then vanished. Hours earlier, the storm had been a rumor, a soft comb across the leaves, a rehearsal without audience. The ranger ran crooked through the understory, boots failing to unlearn an old limp, breath counting the seconds between flash and rumble. The path kept rewriting itself with roots and water, yet his body remembered turns that maps never recorded. He carried no weapon, only a battered pack, a coil of gauze, and a knot inside his ribs that tightened when the forest went quiet. Above, saturated light bruised the sky. Below, frogs choked their songs as if the script had turned too dark. He knew storms like this changed decision-making, softened soil, sharpened teeth, and erased tracks, including his own. The radio on his belt was a mute witness. He smelled the metallic edge before he heard the roar, the kind that climbs the spine like a cold hand.
The roar collapsed the distance. It was an avalanche of grief tumbling through living pillars, a sound too full for an animal throat. Birds detonated into flight, leaves rattled their coins, and the ranger's mouth filled with rain. He slowed because men who run toward that sound must choose what they will carry back. The ground pitched under him, slick roots arguing with ankles. A second roar arrived, chipped by wind, longer, lower, torn by a restraint that would not hold. He pictured a map of invisible circles, wide as the troops' fear, overlapping his own like storm cells. When he cut left, he tasted the ripped bark of a tree he did not touch. Somewhere ahead, earth pounded to the rhythm of a tremendous body, certainty beating against the impossible. He remembered a classroom poster saying never approach a grieving animal. The rain erased the advice like chalk. He found them by absence first. Sound dropped into a basin, and all the small lives hid their bright engines. In that hush, the mother crouched beneath a fraying umbrella of leaves, cradling a bundle whose quiet had a gravity. The infant's arm dangled from her elbow crook, fingers splayed like a forgotten starfish, nails pale crescents ticking no time. The silverback hovered a breath away, ears catching every trespass of air, chest flaring in storms of fog. Mud painted their legs as if the earth had tried to pull them back down into a safer story. The ranger took in the wet glaze over the infant's mouth, the heaviness that water gives to fur, the suck and release of puddles under feet. He counted the lull between flashes, 4, 5, thunder. His hands rose into the ancient shape of surrender that animals sometimes read as permission.
The silverback's grief had become kinetic, punching the ground in wet explosions that speckled the ranger's cheeks with sediment and warning. Each blow seemed a vote against the universe that had allowed this, a referendum on breath. The forest trembled as if agreeing. The mother bent deeper over the infant, rocking on a rhythm older than storm. The tiny skull nestled in the cradle of her wrist. A fly dabbed at the corner of the baby's eye and retreated, as if repelled by ownership. The ranger's mouth shaped words that rain stole, so he gave them up and instead measured distance, angles, retreat lines, the slope of trust. He had seen that fist break saplings and imaginations. The silverback's eyes were not the eyes of menace, but of a king caught kneeling for the first time, unable to force the world back into its rightful shape. The jungle closed ranks. Vines leaned in with studious curiosity. Leaves presented their slick faces like mirrors, asking the living to account for themselves. Insects shifted to a lower register. Frogs unthreaded their notes. The ranger felt the air tilt, a pressure change that snakes interpret without thinking. He watched condensed mist breathe from the silverback's muzzle, clouding, clearing, clouding like the sky behind him. Their triangle, man, mother, king, fixed in a geometry too delicate for mistakes. He thought about weight, of water, of attention, of histories that buckle under sudden meanings. A droplet burst on the infant's lashes and hung there like a crystallized answer. The ranger slid one boot half a length forward and waited for the math of flight and fight to add him as a variable. His heartbeat learned the forest's drum. A distant branch cracked without falling, a promise suspended.
He stepped through the perimeter of scent and memory that rings a family and entered a sanctum deeper than law. His palms faced the canopy, fingers open, lines visible, a map offered for reading. He kept his chin level because heads lowered too far either beg or threaten. The silverback swelled, bones re-inhabiting their legend, but did not strike. The ranger could smell the iron and sweet rot of torn foliage, the acid of fear dried and re-wetted in the rain. He knelt to make his chest smaller than a boulder and his shadow a thing without edge. The mother's gaze was a rope pulled between two cliffs. He had to become a bridge or a fall. A wind pushed the sheets of rain sideways, and the clearing brightened with that cruel, stagey light storms sometimes grant when tragedy requires clarity. Trust does not arrive, it is brokered. The ranger placed his pack down slowly, fabric squelching, contents a choir of quiet knocks. Gauze, foil blanket, a battered bottle, a folded mask, a memory of hands learning pressure on orange peels in training, never on something that looked back. He studied the infant's chest, how water made a skin over skin, the sternum a soft door. The mother pivoted her body between him and the silverback, accepting risk like a shield with breath. Her shoulders trembled in microquakes, her nostrils flared at each new humanness. The ranger evaluated airway, imagined the tiny bronchi like wet reeds resisting song. He rehearsed in his skull the sequence that lives between science and plea. The silverback's fingers curled soil into fists and let it fall, as if reminding gravity who ruled here.
The clearing's edge rippled with a scent the storm could not dilute, a thread of musk and hunger, low-slung and patient. The ranger's skin knew what his eyes could not yet place. A predator had bracketed their sorrow. Lightning set the understory into stuttering relief, fern spines like quills, lianas like blackened veins, and for half a heartbeat he saw the sliver of an amber eye. The jungle's silence became opinionated. He recalculated vectors. Protection became not symbolic but literal. He shifted his knee closer to the mother's flank, presenting a wider presence without towering. The silverback angled his massive shoulder toward the threat, grief dividing into two organisms, mourning and war readiness. The infant's lips were blueberries and fur, time wearing out its shoes. Rain ticked louder on a broadleaf overhead, as if counting down a test no one had studied for. He began with breath, not his, but his memory of it. The feel of ribs like book spines under a palm, the way air can be borrowed, the cost of returning it. With 2 fingers he cleared the infant's mouth, sweeping water and leaf pulp that smelled like green tea after a flood. He aligned the tiny head, opened the jaw with a thumb gentler than prayer, and sealed his mouth over the miniature muzzle. Air traveled, thin and doubtful. He felt it push against resistance and seep back into his own lungs with the jungle's taste. Compress, hold, reassess. The mother hovered, her hands fluttering in shapes that looked like questions. The silverback's breath braided with thunder. The ranger's world telescoped to a pulse point he could not locate, a light he could not coax. He counted silently, letting the storm provide percussion.
Memories intruded like involuntary lightning. A boy version of him, knees muddy, cupping a swallow fallen from its sky, trying to press life back through feathers. The bird's eyes had been mirrors that reflected a child and a ceiling of rain. The outcome had been a lesson with teeth. He had vowed then to collect skills as other children collected marbles. Now those skills wobbled on the edge of failing him exactly where it mattered most. He corralled his mind back to this clearing, this trembling infant, this mother's small hope pinned like a pinned moth. Compress again. Thunder counted closer, the intervals shortened like lifelines. He kept his face neutral, because expressions become contagions in troops. The silverback watched with ferocity dialed to a contained storm, as if measuring whether the human was borrowing time or stealing it. The infant's abdomen flickered under his palm, a ghost of movement that could be life or the storm's tremor finding residence in fur. He froze, hands hovering as if motion itself might scare breath back into hiding. The mother leaned in. The silverback's upper lip quivered, revealing the pale architecture of teeth designed for everything except negotiation. A droplet traveled down the infant's ear and caught in the notch, bright as a jewel. He resumed with smaller compressions, adjusting the angle, trusting the training that said sometimes less is more when bodies are small and thresholds narrow. The clearing held them as a mouth holds a question. A long-bellied rumble rolled along the ground, and somewhere, far beyond, a tree decided it had had enough of standing. The ranger tasted copper, though he was not bleeding. The world felt thin.
History folded the scene from another angle. Hours, days, years had their own weather systems in this forest, and what began as water often ended as instruction in the bones. The ranger's past organized itself into vignettes that the present kept stealing focus from. A poached carcass discovered too late. A calf dragged from snares with eyes already turned to marbles. A night he gave up and later dreamed of teeth. Each failure had left a filament, and all of them braided now into a rope he used to pull this moment toward survival. The infant's fur began to feel warmer under his hands, or perhaps his hands grew numb and lied. The silverback's fists loosened incrementally, knuckles losing their white edges. The mother's rocking slowed into a tighter radius, like a planet adjusting its orbit around a possibility. The jaguar slipped one whisker length closer to the borderlands of courage and caution, eyes polished to coins by lightning. Its body was a sentence without wasted adjectives, a promise of speed coiled in punctuation marks of muscle. The ranger rotated his torso enough to signal to the silverback what lurked where he looked. The king read it, and sorrow summoned a violence that did not require rehearsal. He rose as though a hydraulic had been released, a column of night with scars. The jaguar's ears flattened, calculating the economy of this meal against the risk of a father's fury. The infant's chest did not care for predators or politics. It asked again for air and received a portion too small to live on. The mother's fingertips traced circles on the baby's sternum, the shape of a moon no one could lift.
A lightning spear tore the sky and drove itself into a tree at the clearing's edge, exploding sap into steam, bark into shrapnel. The blast stunned even the storm, creating one bright second without rain. In that second, the rangers saw the silverback between jaguar and family, arms a barricade of myth. He also saw that the mother had loosened her grip in surprise, and water slid from the infant's lips in a ribbon.
The world resumed its downpour with insults added. He seized the angle, rolled the infant minutely, and watched a stream carry more fluid from the airway than his fingers had managed. The tremor under the tiny ribs returned for 3 counts, then faltered. He pressed again, learning the topography of that chest by braille of desperation. The silverback roared an edict that sent the jaguar backward into leaf noise. Breath came like a thief, in and out before anyone owned it. The infant's abdomen rose a thumb's breadth, then another, then stuttered as if the storm had placed a foot on it. The ranger felt tears mingle with rain and made no taxonomy. He created a pocket of calm with his posture, shielding what small warmth he could. The mother's eyes were furnaces banked low, heat without flame. The silverback cast his shadow over all of them, a roof built of body. The jaguar's patience frayed and rewove itself at the border of courage. The ranger's mind cataloged the micro-signs, coloration losing its bluest edge, tongue retreating from the porch of the lips, fingers no longer glass still. The clearing whispered that nothing is free, that every breath must be bought with attention. He kept paying, coin after invisible coin.
Outside the clearing, the storm spent itself into a lesser animal, panting on the slopes. The first hesitant birds printed their syllables onto the wet air, testing whether the script had changed. The ranger knew that these minutes often decide which stories become myth and which become apology. He continued compressions, slower now, letting the infant attempt ownership of its own breathing. The mother bent her forehead to the tiny shoulder, adding warmth from a place beyond weather. The silverback's shoulders sank, bulk growing heavier, not with surrender, but with cost. The jaguar resigned itself to the mathematics of hunger postponed and withdrew into foliage that accepted its vanishing. The infant coughed a drop the size of hope. The ranger waited for the next cough, like sailors watch for a second wave to prove the ocean still remembers motion. The next cough did not come. Instead, the infant's mouth relaxed into that terrifying neutrality where mouths do not register the world. The ranger resumed with a precision that felt like prayer disguised as protocol. He remembered a medic's hands on his own years ago, guiding pressure over a practice dummy's chest, saying, "Rhythm is kindness, because bodies understand music long after they forget instruction." He set his tempo to the dripping of a leaf, a metronome that never misses a beat. The mother's shoulders shook once, a tremor she swallowed. The silverback exhaled like a wind through a cave. In the canopy, sunlight considered returning and decided against it. The ranger wondered what parts of this moment would fossilize in his memory and which would erode, and whether either choice would be merciful.
Time fractured, then reassembled in a quieter rain under a different sky. The mother gorilla stood in a narrow stream years later, the water amber with tannin, the season a green that forgave. Before her, another infant, not hers, lay stunned by a fall into cold current. Her hands, older and sure, moved with the same impossible choreography she had once watched in a human. Press, lift, clear, warm, guard. The troop behind her hesitated, unsettled by the boundary crossing of care. She ignored their grammar and attended to breath, her back a wall against panic. The infant's eyes were marbles rolling toward sleep. She anchored them with touch. The forest held an old echo and swallowed it, making space for a new one. In the foliage, something watched with the peace of an answer finally forming. Rewind to the clearing of crisis. The ranger's muscles began to mutiny, small tremors stealing precision. He adjusted, bringing in forearm instead of wrist, resting one knee to preserve strength for the minutes that matter. The silverback lowered himself until one knuckle brushed the mud near the infant's heel, a proximity that felt like permission or preparation.
The storm lashed the canopy again as if offended by this argument against its verdict. The ranger noticed heat returning in his own hands and could not tell whether it came from the child or from friction with hope. He rotated the infant slightly, aligning the airway with the slope of the jaw, a geometry remembered from diagrams and forgiven by instinct. Breath came thin, left thinner, returned shy. He built a shelter of seconds around it, then kept building.
False dawn arrived inside the ranger's chest. A tiny swallow of air broke the pattern, lifting the infant's ribs in a way that promised continuation. He paused to see if the promise kept itself. The breath fell, shallow as rumor. He had learned the cruelty of almosts. He resumed without letting his face confess. The mother mirrored his motions now, her palms hovering in synchronous tremble above the infant's sternum, as if learning muscle memory through shadow. The silverback's gaze softened by a degree that only animals and those who study them would detect. The jaguar's scent thinned into the currency of distance. The rein's percussion shifted from marching to whispering. The ranger told his blood to move slower, to stop drumming panic into his wrists. He could not afford a tremor in the measure. The silverback's body carried too many stories at once, and for a moment, it failed under that archive. He settled into a posture that looked like defeat if you did not understand kingship. From there, he watched with an intensity that made the air denser. The mother's breath threaded itself through the infant's hair, donating warmth and narrative. The ranger considered hypothermia's greedy appetite and stripped his jacket, making a tent over their small constellation, careful not to introduce his scent into places it would confuse. Steam lifted from the infant's fur in frail banners, then faded. He cupped the head in a cradle of callus and counted again. One of the infant's fingers flexed, then unflexed, an alphabet too early to read. The clearing leaned in. The sky wrote nothing.
Hunger does not accept postponements easily, and the jaguar reconsidered the math. It stepped from shadow into definition, pattern bright as wet embers, head low, tail spelling a slow, cruel patience. The silverback stood into his full story and advanced, not roaring now, but issuing a sound like mountains shifting, a bass too low for human throats. They met at the clearing's lip, two solutions to the same problem. The jaguar weighed tendon and rage against injury that would sideline seasons. The ranger shifted his body to shield the infant without insulting the father. The mother never looked up. She pressed and counted, a metronome that defied the cathedral of teeth at her perimeter. The jungle approved conflict without expense and nudged the cat toward thrift. Muscles uncoiled into retreat, the pattern reknit itself into leaves. With the predator gone, the storm's last arguments fell in tired strands. The ranger's breath felt like sanded wood, every inhale a braiding. He checked the infant's color and found fewer blue notes in the cord, more earth. A thin tremor under his fingers established residency, a tenant he feared to evict by noticing. The silverback circled behind him, close enough that spine hair knew. The mother's rocking changed tempo, no longer the dirge of denial, but the fragile cradle of a lullaby testing the room. The infant's eyelids ghosted movement beneath, dreaming perhaps of being alive. The ranger refused labels until patterns proved themselves. He stacked gentle compressions, each one a coin laid on a scale against gravity. The forest released a single bird into the air, like a signature on a document no one remembered drafting.
Dusk threaded itself into the storm's tatters, and the ranger knew the calculus of leaving before the light thinned into hazard. Survival requires walking away sometimes, even when staying feels like the last honorable verb. He arranged the infant in the mother's arms along a slope that respected airways and warmth. then retreated a pace and let his shape blur with rain. The silverback tracked his descent from the sanctum with a gaze that did not loosen. The ranger bent to retrieve his pack and kept his head low, a bow without subordination. In his chest, a voice asked whether he had bought minutes or merely rented them. The forest would answer, but not tonight. He left a triangle behind him that would continue to solve itself or not, a theorem of breath written in water. Night expanded, licking away edges, and memories nested in the ranger's skull like birds in rafters. Faces without fur, disasters without thunder replayed along the wet film of his eyes. He walked until the storm's teeth dulled, then stopped and let silence audition. The radio cracked a meaningless syllable and died again. He imagined the infant's chest rising an even rhythm and did not allow himself to hold the image long. He practiced the ritual of not knowing, that discipline that keeps fieldwork honest and hearts undevoured. Somewhere, owls reopened the night's library. He ate a strip of something that had the texture of cardboard and the taste of penance. On his tongue, the jungle's minerals arranged themselves into a sentence that said, "Try again," without promise. He slept briefly, a sign that exhaustion had replaced both hope and despair.
Years later, the stream ran amber, and the season wore its generosity openly. The mother stepped into current that pebbles negotiated with their own quiet politics. Before her, a small body from a neighboring troop lay in shock, breath a lost thread. She did not reach for permission. Her hands moved with certainty that had no grammar in the wild except necessity. She cleared the mouth with 2 swift scoops, turned the head to invite water out, pressed and measured pulses drawn from an old storm's instruction. The troop murmured unease at the border crossing, but no one approached the doctrine of her back. The infant sputtered like a match in drizzle, then took one thin flame of breath. She sheltered it with her chest and watched the color travel home. A king in the brush held still and let the world revise itself. Was it learning or instinct wearing a new coat? In the canopy, light stitched silver on the edges of leaves and then unstitched it. The mother finished her work and repositioned the infant toward warmth, as if arranging fur and breath along an axis she trusted more than distance. The watching troop recorded this deviation in the long annals of what is tolerated. Knowledge traveled without language the way seeds travel in fur, arriving where stories have room. Somewhere downstream, fish altered their course around a memory of heat. The forest listened, carrying the older echo of a human kneeling in rain, of a father holding himself together by threat alone. The mother's eyes scanned the banks for predators and found none bold enough to contradict this revision. The infant's chest charted a rhythm of ownership, weak but undeniable.
The forest exhaled a long approval. Cicadas opened their brass throats. Air wove itself into ribbons that smelled of crushed mint and wet stone. The mother lifted her face into a sun not yet visible and let the warmth argue down the last shiver. In a far clearing, vines had reclaimed the lightning-shattered stump with green insistence, stitching wreckage into gloss. Time is a patient carpenter when given wood and weather. The infant slept in the crook of survival, dreams not yet literate, breath making small signatures on the air. The troop recalculated its social trigonometry to include a debt. Nothing stalked the perimeters with hunger large enough to veto this outcome. The stream, satisfied with its diplomacy, moved on. Somewhere high, a hawk drew a single circle like a period at the end of a rewritten sentence. He was older by then, hair threaded with weather, gait still arguing with an old injury. The ranger stood at the stream's bend with binoculars he barely used and let the scene reach him without glass. He watched the mother complete an act he had once begged the world to allow him, and a silence unhooked inside his chest. He did not ask whether the first infant had lived, because the question felt small beside this answer. Across species and seasons, a choreography had leapt the gap without words. He stepped backward until brush took him, leaving no trace but a softened breath. The mother did not look his way. She did not need to. The forest stitched shut behind him, whole and changed, the way scars are. Somewhere, a child with dark eyes learned to count storms as teachers, not only thieves.